The Grand Oak Regency was a palace of polite chaos. On this particular Monday, the chaos was anything but polite. Whispers of a VIP's arrival had been buzzing through the staff since dawn. The air in the opulent, marble-floored lobby was thick with nervous energy, the kind that makes smiles feel too tight and uniforms feel too stiff. The VIP, a renowned Japanese businesswoman named Akemi Tanaka, was said to be scouting hotels for a massive international investment. The general manager, a man whose smile could freeze a room, had made it clear. Perfection was the only option. But perfection shattered the moment Akemi Tanaka stepped through the revolving doors. Dressed in a dignified, navy blue kimono adorned with delicate silver cranes, she was a striking figure. But her elegance was overshadowed by a frantic, desperate energy. She clutched a photograph in her hand and spoke in a rapid-fire torrent of Japanese. Her voice edged with panic. The front desk receptionist, a young woman with a perfectly coiffed bun and a practiced smile, looked utterly lost. "Ma'am," she stammered, "do you have a reservation?" "I'm sorry, I don't understand." Akemi pointed at her phone, then at the photo, her pleas growing more urgent. Her words were a cascade of foreign sounds, a beautiful language lost on uncomprehending ears. The receptionist's face flushed with embarrassment. Managers rushed over, their polished shoes slipping on the pristine floor. One tried a translation app on his phone, holding it up like a shield. The robotic voice that came out only added to the woman's frustration. Other guests began to murmur, their curiosity turning to judgment. In that moment, Akemi wasn't a powerful millionaire. She was a mother, desperate and unheard, standing alone in a sea of indifferent strangers. Her shoulders drooped, and her eyes, filled with unshed tears, scanned the room. From a quiet corner near the staff elevators, Zola watched. She was a tall, graceful black woman in her early 30s. Her maid's uniform, a plain navy blue dress with a white apron, made her a part of the background, a shadow that moved silently through the gilded halls. Zola had worked at the Grand Oak Regency for 3 years, and in all that time, she had mastered the art of being invisible. She scrubbed toilets, mopped floors, and changed beds, her mind often a million miles away, humming soft melodies she'd learned from different cultures. For Zola, the hotel was a fortress of solitude. She listened more than she spoke, observing the world from the periphery. Guests barely saw her, and even the hotel management only knew her by a generic staff number. The general manager once berated her for taking too long to clean a bathroom, his words sharp and dismissive. But Zola never let the bitterness settle. She had a quiet dignity that was all her own, a strength that came from a life she had to build for herself. Once she had dreams of becoming a linguist, of traveling the world and speaking 1,000 different tongues. She had even attended a university on scholarship, a brilliant star on a path to a bright future. But a cruel twist of fate, her mother's sudden illness, a mountain of medical bills, forced her to abandon that dream. The only job she could find was housekeeping. But even as she cleaned the floors and tidied the luxurious rooms, she kept the flame of her passion alive. In the quiet moments, in the solitude of her apartment, she would whisper phrases in French, Korean, Arabic, and Japanese. It was a secret world she carried with her, a part of herself she never expected to use again. Now, watching the distressed Japanese woman, a flicker of that old passion stirred within her. The woman's desperation was palpable. Zola saw a mother, not a millionaire. She saw a heart breaking. She put her mop down, the clatter echoing in the hushed lobby, and took a few hesitant steps forward. Her heart pounded in her chest, a drumbeat of fear and resolve. She knew she was breaking every rule, stepping out of her assigned role. She bowed slightly, a gesture that came instinctively from years of practicing Japanese phrases, and spoke in a soft, clear voice. "Sumimasen," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Watashi ga tetsude mashuka?" "Excuse me, can I help you?" The lobby went silent. The managers, the guests, the receptionist. Everyone froze, their eyes fixed on the maid who had just spoken a language no one else could. Akemi's head snapped up. Her eyes, which had been dull with despair, now widened. She looked at Zola, a maid in a simple uniform, and saw hope. Her face, a mask of frustration moments before, crumpled with relief. She rushed toward Zola, taking her hands in her own, her touch surprisingly gentle. "Anata wa Nihongo o hanasemisu ka? You speak Japanese?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. Zola nodded, and Akemi began to speak, the words spilling out in a torrent of gratitude and urgency. She spoke of a daughter, of a long-lost past, of a photograph clutched in her hand like a lifeline. For nearly 15 minutes, they stood there, two women from different worlds, united by a common tongue. Zola listened intently, her face a canvas of empathy, occasionally nodding and responding with a quiet confidence that belied her station. The hotel staff watched, stunned into silence. They had seen Zola as a silent fixture, a part of the furniture. Now she was the centerpiece, the only one who could bridge the gap. When their conversation was finished, Zola turned to the bewildered hotel staff. "She's not here for a stay," Zola explained softly, her voice still a little shaky. "She's looking for her daughter." A collective gasp swept through the lobby. The general manager, his face pale with a mix of shock and shame, stepped forward. "Her daughter? Here?" Zola nodded. Years ago, Akemi was forced to give up her baby girl. She had recently learned that the child may have grown up in this very city and had once worked in a hotel under a different name. Her only clue was a faded photograph and a journal entry that mentioned the Grand Oak Regency. As Zola spoke, Akemi took out the photograph and held it up. It was a picture of a little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, with a bright, hopeful smile. Around her neck was a delicate silver chain with a small, carved bird pendant. Zola's breath hitched. Her hands began to tremble. She reached up and touched the small, silver bird pendant that she had worn since childhood, a gift from her foster mother, who had found it in a shoebox with her when she was a baby. It was the exact same necklace. Her heart pounded, a deafening roar in her ears. She whispered, her voice barely audible. This is me." The room stood silent, a moment frozen in time. The air, once electric with chaos, was now thick with disbelief and wonder. The head manager, the same man who had been so quick to scold her, was speechless, his jaw hanging open. Akemi, tears finally overflowing, cupped Zola's face in her hands, her touch as gentle as a butterfly's wings. She looked into Zola's eyes, seeing not a maid, but her long-lost child. "Anata wa watashi no muzum desu ka? Are you my daughter?" Zola could only nod, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her whole life, she had felt a void, a question mark hanging over her past. Now, in the most unexpected way, in the most public of places, the answer had finally found her. The reunion was not a storybook ending. It was raw and emotional, filled with tears and long, painful silences. Zola had 1,000 questions, a lifetime of hurt bubbling to the surface. "Why now? Why did you leave me? Why did it take so long?" Akemi, in halting English, with Zola translating when the words failed, explained everything. Her family in Japan had forbidden her relationship with an American man. They had forced her to leave the baby with distant relatives, who, out of fear and shame, had placed her in the foster care system. Akemi had tried for years to find her, following false leads, her heart breaking with every dead end. She had never stopped searching, never stopped loving. For the first time in her life, Zola didn't feel abandoned. She felt found. The woman she had always believed had rejected her was the one who had never given up. Fate had brought them together, not through wealth or status, but through the universal language of a mother's love and the quiet, persistent passion of a maid. News of the reunion spread like wildfire. A guest, moved to tears by the scene, had recorded the tearful moment and uploaded it online. The video, titled "Black Maid Speaks Fluent Japanese, Finds Her Long-Lost Mother in Hotel Lobby," went viral. It was the kind of story the world needed to hear. The hotel staff, who had always seen Zola as invisible, now looked at her with a new reverence, a mix of awe and shame. The general manager, his face red with a humiliation deeper than any he had ever known, approached her. He offered her a promotion, a new position in guest relations, a path to a better life within the company. But Zola politely declined. "I don't want to rise just because I was overlooked," she said, her voice firm and clear. "I want to rise because I've earned it." Akemi, now settled in the presidential suite, invited Zola to Tokyo, promising to fund her return to university and support her dream of becoming a global interpreter. It was an offer Zola had dreamed of her entire life, a chance to reclaim the future she had lost. But before she left, she had one final, poignant request. "Let me finish my shift today," she said to the stunned general manager. "I started this morning as a maid. I'd like to end the day as one." She picked up her mop, a tool of her invisible trade, and began to work, her movements graceful and deliberate. But this time, there was a spark in her eyes, a light in her heart that had long been missing. The mop was no longer a symbol of her lost dreams. It was a symbol of the quiet dignity she had always carried, a testament to the strength she had found in herself. 2 months later, Zola boarded a plane to Tokyo, her eyes fixed on the horizon, filled with hope and purpose. At the arrival gate, Akemi waited for her, holding not only a beautiful bouquet of flowers, but a framed certificate for university admission. It was the first gift a mother had ever given her. In Japan, Zola returned to university, her mind sharp and hungry for knowledge. She mastered new languages, immersed herself in new cultures, and began a new chapter of her life. She gave interviews, spoke at women's conferences, and became an advocate for overlooked workers and children in the foster care system. Her story became more than a viral clip. It became a movement, a reminder that status doesn't define intelligence, that kindness is a universal language, and that sometimes the most invisible people carry the most powerful gifts. As Zola once told a packed auditorium, her voice ringing with the quiet conviction of a woman who had found her worth. Sometimes it takes speaking someone's language to understand their heart, but it always takes listening to recognize their worth. So the next time you walk through a hotel, and you pass a maid with a mop in her hand and dreams in her eyes, don't just walk by. You might be walking past someone who speaks 6 languages and holds a story the world needs to hear. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more real-life inspired emotional stories.